The latest Hindenburg report has caused a huge reaction both in the markets as well as in the political corridors of the country. This time the target isn't just the Adani group. Like I said, the SEBI chief is also under the scanner. But let me just simplify it for you first. Before we delve deep into really who said what each person's defense is, let's explain to you the entire story and exactly what is the alleged link of the SEBI chief to the Adani group as per the Hindenburg Research. We break it down for you. Right on top, the name that you see there, Atul Vinod Adani, controls this company. He is essentially Gautam Adani's elder brother. Now, in fact, what you see below that, the Global Dynamics Opportunities Fund, this is a sub-fund of Atul. And that's where the link essentially emerges. Now, interestingly, you had, in fact, Madhabi Buch and her husband Dhaval investing in the IPES Plus Fund 1. Now, the allegation is that this fund was dispersed and part of it was put in the Global Dynamic Opportunities Fund, which, as we've shown you, is linked, in fact, to the Adani group. So this is essentially the allegation here. What's also important to highlight here is that the IPES Plus Fund 1 is Mauritius-based. Anil Ahuja is the CEO, and Anil Ahuja is the ex-nominee director as well as the director within the Adani group. So that's another link that's essentially emerged. Now, interestingly, you've had, in fact, IPES come out with a statement saying, at no point did we put our funds in any of these sub-funds in anything linked to the Adani group. But we'll get to that in just a bit. This is entirely the crux of the issue here, which is that you had, in fact, Madhabi Buch and Dhaval investing in this particular fund. The money then was diversified, of course, in different formats, including this sub-fund, allegedly. This is what the Hindenburg Research papers suggest. But remember also that this investment was done before she was the SEBI chief, years ago. And then, of course, she gave up this investment as well once she became the SEBI chief. But the issue here, and according to the Hindenburg report, if this stands true, there's a question of conflict of interest, particularly because, as we know, in light of the first papers that emerged from Hindenburg Research, you had the SEBI going ahead and investigating the Adani group and giving them a clean chit. So that's where there are questions about whether there is a conflict of interest. And I'd like to bring in on this broadcast our managing editor of Business Today TV, Siddharth Zarabi, to kind of explain this further. The one question that everyone's asking right now, Siddharth, when you look at that breakdown and you look at the link that's emerged based on the Hindenburg report, is why didn't Madhabi Buch go ahead and recuse herself from the Adani case? Cite conflict of interest, as has been stated in multiple comments that have come in from SEBI and the SEBI chief, that all details were 100% given. There was transparency. There was recusals in cases of conflict of interest. Why not in this one then?
Well, Akshita, it's very clear at this stage, as far as that particular point is concerned, that Madhabi Buch, as the chairperson of SEBI, has said very clearly, and I want to quote this. She says, all disclosure and recusals have been diligently followed, including disclosures of all securities held or subsequently transferred. This is point number 14 of a 15-point reply that was provided by them on the 11th of August after the first Hindenburg release came out.
Okay, Siddharth, just stay with me because I also want to dig deeper into these allegations. We'll break it down for our viewers. What exactly has Hindenburg alleged here? Now, we'll put it forward in slew of number of allegations that they have leveled against Madhabi Buch and her husband Dhaval. Allegation 1, and this dates back to June 2015. This is what we referred to, which is that Madhabi Buch and her husband Dhaval had stakes in obscure offshore funds used in the Adani money siphoning scandal. We told you about the Mauritius-based company. There's also a Bermuda-based one. The allegation, of course, of those firms and their names have come up in the Adani money siphoning scandal, and as per the Hindenburg Research, you had Madhabi Buch and her husband also having stakes in this back in June 2015. Now fast forward to March 2017. Now the husband, Dhaval, seeks to become the sole authorized person to operate accounts, execute documents. What you see essentially is a handover of sorts of those investments away from Madhabi Buch but to her husband, Dhaval. And the next month, in April, Buch goes ahead and joins SEBI as a whole-time member. I must highlight here here that before this, she was in the private sector. So she was, in fact, in the corporate sector and then jumped over to the SEBI. And before that, 1 month before, as we just highlighted for you, there were attempts to go ahead and transfer all of this to her husband, because obviously it's a conflict of interest. Now, the next year, February 28th, 2018, there's an attempt to go ahead and seeking redemption of all units. So this was done a year later as well. So this is one allegation, which we also explained to you in the beginning of this broadcast about the link to the Adani Group. The second allegation from April 2017 to March 2022, and this was while Buch was part of SEBI. In fact, and then also the chairperson from March 2nd, 2022 onwards, she had 100% interest in an offshore Singaporean consulting firm called Agora Partners. So this is part 2, essentially, of the expose that Hindenburg has put out on the SEBI chief. We'll move this forward for you to tell you more about allegation 2. This point right here, 100% interest in an offshore Singaporean consulting firm called Agora Partners. Now, 2 weeks after being appointed as SEBI chief, and the date given here is March 16th, 2022. 2 weeks after she was officially named as the SEBI chief, Buch transferred these shares to her husband, to Dhaval Buch. So it no longer was in her name. Any link that she had to this consulting firm was out. It was through her husband. So currently, as per Hindenburg's papers, she has a 99% stake in an Indian consulting business called Agora Advisory, and her husband is, interestingly, the director in this. These are part of allegation 2 that we've just explained to you. Let's take you through the next set of allegations. We're taking this slowly so you can really break down the level of charges applied here against Buch by Hindenburg. Now, allegation 3, and this is during her tenure again as SEBI member in 2019, her husband, Dhaval, was appointed as a senior advisor to Blackstone. Now, the reason that this also has raised questions and raised eyebrows is that he had not worked for a fund in real estate or capital markets before. So suddenly, out of the blue, he's given this role of senior advisor to Blackstone. So there are questions being asked right now of Madhabi Buch, the SEBI chief, and of her husband, Dhaval. These are the 3 allegations essentially put forth right now in the Hindenburg papers, all of them targeting the SEBI chief. I want to bring in Siddharth Zarabi also on this. These are essentially the 3 allegations put forth, Siddharth. But after that, you had a follow-up response of sorts by Hindenburg, especially in light of the SEBI chief clarifying, SEBI also issuing a statement. Hindenburg seems to have actually doubled down on their charges against the SEBI chief.
Well, that's how they have been, and in this fast-paced release and counter-release scenario, what seems to have happened is, as far as the 4 major allegations were concerned, I just want to quickly recount that for our viewers. What was the first one? It said there is financial opacity in the manner in which between April 2017 and March 2022, Madhabi Buch owned a Singaporean consulting firm. That was point number 1. There are various claims made by Hindenburg in that regard. The second one was conflict of interest with Blackstone, and this conflict of interest revolves around the SEBI chairperson's tenure and her husband's appointment as a senior advisor at Blackstone, which is a major investor in real estate investment trust. The third was opaque business transactions, and of course this was one of the key elements, and along with that lack of disclosure. In the second set of claims by Hindenburg, the issue around the real estate seems to have been dropped, and what Hindenburg has now asked, and it's important for us to quickly take note of that, there are 4 key issues that they raise. One, they say that the transfer of shares into her husband's name happened 2 weeks after her appointment as SEBI chairperson. They also say that the SEBI chairperson used her private email for doing this. Hindenburg also claims that Ms. Buch has personally invested in and funds by the same sponsor, which accounts to a massive conflict of interest. This is the doubling down that you refer to. And they also say that the Singaporean consulting firm, which doesn't publicly report its financials, the SEBI chairperson has continued while serving as a chairperson to have revenue accruing to that firm. And therefore, Hindenburg is saying that in the interest of complete transparency, she should release the full list of consulting clients and details of the engagements through the offshore Singaporean entity and the Indian consulting firm, and also declare whether any entity and her husband may have had any interest in. So Hindenburg is doubling down, asking fresh questions, but on one aspect, which is the so-called correlation that was being drawn between SEBI and what it has done for real investment trusts, that seems to have been dropped for now, Akshita.
Just one final question with you, Siddharth, and I'll just come across to you in a few moments. I just want to talk about what the reaction of the markets really has been today. It started off slow, and if you look at really how the markets have come to an end also, it ended flat, so in the red essentially for both NIFTY and SENSEX. But there was no real impact felt of the Hindenburg report on the market. So you see that clearly in the graph as well. Like I said, it ended flat, so it is in the red at the end of trading. But having said that, the impact was largely minimal, restricted perhaps to the Adani Group, and most definitely not the kind of bloodbath that you saw the first time around when the first report had emerged as well. So interestingly, at one point, at about 11 a.m., you had both, in fact, NIFTY and SENSEX in green, surging ahead. And there was also, of course, the impact being felt of IPES putting out a statement saying very clearly we didn't put any money or any of these funds in any Adani-linked group. So while we talk about that, Siddharth, I'll come back to you to talk about really how the markets have reacted, which we're showing here on our screens, but at the same time, what it's meant for the Adani Group, Siddharth.
18 months ago, there was a complete bloodbath. And, you know, the market cap erosion was in hundreds of billions of dollars, in fact, $150 billion or thereabouts. Today's trade, Monday, has been different. I think in some ways the markets have taken it in stride. When the original Hindenburg report was released on Saturday, there has been several replies, including very, very importantly, and this is germane to your earlier questions, that one of the entities, IIFL, which is now called 360° 1, has come out with a very strong denial saying that the money that the SEBI chairperson and her husband had allegedly invested in an entity never went to any Adani entity. That's the sort of simplified crux of their reply. So when that reply has come out, I think market participants have taken note of it. However, there was a significant fall in Adani Group shares, but there was a recovery. And when it closed, when markets closed today for trade, I think the dip was far, far lesser, perhaps in the range of around 18 to 20,000 crore versus the hundreds and thousands that we had seen last time when the first original Hindenburg hit on the Adani Group had happened.
All right. Thanks very much, Siddharth, for joining us on this broadcast, explaining to us what really the report has highlighted and the allegations here, as well as what the reaction has been first day of the markets opening since the report was released over the weekend. Now, as expected, this has led to a huge political storm. The first time around, too, this rocked Parliament led to, of course, a flurry of opposition reactions, claiming that this was all corruption that we're seeing in the regime right now. But now, at this point, the opposition has come together to demand that there be a joint parliamentary committee investigation into the allegations leveled by the Hindenburg Research Group against the Adani Group, as well as against SEBI chief Madhabi Buch. Now, at this point, Rahul Gandhi also in a video statement has demanded her resignation, saying ideally, in light of these allegations, she should step down and there must be a detailed investigation. The BJP, however, has dismissed all of these allegations, accusing the opposition of siding with anti-India foreign forces like George Soros.
The controversy surrounding Hindenburg Research continues to intensify. Opposition parties latched onto the claims made against SEBI chief Madhabi Buch. Alleging an institutional collapse in stock markets, leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi voiced serious concerns, warning of significant risks to investors in the Indian stock market.
It has now emerged that SEBI chairwoman Madhabi Buch and her husband had an interest in one of those funds. The savings of millions of Indians, hard-earned, honestly earned savings, are at risk. Slowly becoming crystal clear why Prime Minister Modi is against a joint parliamentary committee looking into this matter.
In response, the BJP intensified its attack against Congress, alleging it of conspiring to destabilize India's economy and accused Rahul Gandhi of trying to unleash economic anarchy at the behest of foreign forces like George Soros.
The Congress party, its allies, and its closest allies, the Toolkit Gang, have conspired together to usher in economic anarchy and instability in India.
Opposition is now gunning for resignation of SEBI chief Madhabi Buch.
In 2015, you had invested into this very FBI that you now claim that you have no idea about the ultimate ownership. In 2018, you had personally corresponded with this particular fund on your own, in your own personal capacity. When the inquiry report started in 23-24, should you not have disclosed this?
Opposition parties are demanding joint parliamentary committee probe into Hindenburg's claims, but the BJP rejected it as a political stunt.
सेबी की अध्यक्ष का पैसा खुद ही उन ऑफशोर फंड्स में लगा हुआ है, जहां पर की जांच करने की जिम्मेदारी सेबी को सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने दिया। तो क्या सेबी के अध्यक्ष को सुप्रीम कोर्ट में नहीं बताना चाहिए था कि इन्हीं फंड्स में हमारे पैसे लगे हुए हैं? जब तक इसमें जेपीसी नहीं बनेगी, तब तक इसकी निष्पक्ष जांच नहीं हो सकती।
Any Tom, Dick and Harry sitting in foreign country will seek to destabilize India, and they will say JPC. They will belittle India's investors. They will belittle in India's stock market. That is their game. JPC's demand is a sham.
The political fireworks come after Hindenburg on Monday escalated its feud with SEBI and its chief, accusing Buch and her husband of holding stakes in offshore funds linked to the Adani group. Hindenburg has been showcased by SEBI for a series of violations, but now claims conflict of interest by the market regulator. Bureau Report, India Today.